Okay, we're back with a continuation of that first lesson. It's so long, we had to kind of break it down into parts. So again, I'm under the M2-T1 ratios tab. I'm still on 1.1, the very first page, Intro to Ratio, but I scrolled all the way down to activity 1.5, special types of ratios. If you're following along in your textbook, it's M2-18. All right, so a special kind of ratio. So again, we're talking about ratios, and I want you to consider the following statements. There is an 80% chance of rain tomorrow. He ate 2/5 of the cake. Sales tax in Greenmont is 7%. 3/4 of the class is absent. The situations described are examples of special types of ratios, fractions, and percents. So a fraction, which you already know a lot about fractions, is a type of ratio. All right, so what else do we know? Notice that when you write a ratio using the total number of parts, you're also writing a fraction. All right, so when you do the part to whole one, that's a fraction. Fraction can be used as a ratio that shows a part to whole relationship. Excuse me. So ratios can just show part to part and just stay there by themselves, but ratios can also show part to whole. And when they do, they also show a fraction. A percent is a part to whole ratio where the whole is equal to 100. Percent is another name for hundredths. In fact, if you look in other languages, like in the word in French, cent means 100. And so percent is part of 100, okay? The percent symbol means per 100 or out of 100. Therefore, 35% means 35 out of 100. And so in this grid, there's 100 squares and 35 of them are shaded. So that's where you get the 35%. 35% as a fraction is 35 hundredths. 35% as a decimal is 0 and 35 hundredths, pronounced the same. 35% as a ratio is called 35 to 100 or 35 to 100. You can shade 35 of 100 squares on a hundreds grid to represent 35%. All right, let's keep going. Each hundredth grid represents a whole. Write a fraction and a percent to represent the shaded parts of each grid. All right, so remember each hundredth grid. So there's 100 squares here. And we have to, and that represents our whole. Write a fraction. So we have to figure out how many are shaded. Well, each row is 10. So you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a grand total of 45. Out of 100, because it's always out of 100 for percents. So we wrote it as a fraction, and now we have to write it as a percent. So we'd write it this way, 45%. All right, in B, the rows going up and down are also worth 10. So we have 10 and we have 1 for a grand total of 11. So 11 out of 100, that's written as a fraction. We also write it as a percent, so that would be written 11%. And one more together here. In this one, we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So we have 70 out of 100. That's our fraction, or 70%. Go ahead and try D, E, and F on your own.